Welcome back, viewers. You're watching the Savera and I'm Shefali. US President Donald Trump has dispatched his most senior diplomatic envoys to safeguard what is being hailed as his administration's most ambitious and high-stakes foreign policy achievement yet, the Gaza peace deal, which remains in a delicate and uncertain balance just 2 weeks after its signing. Leading the diplomatic charge, Trump's son-in-law and chief Middle East negotiator Jared Kushner, along with U.S. Special Envoy of the Middle East Steve Witkoff, has been stationed in Israel to monitor developments closely and engage with both Israeli and Palestinian officials. In a strong show of commitment, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife Usha Vance visited Israel for 3 days this week, meeting Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other senior leaders to reinforce Washington's message of restraint and cooperation. On their return trip, they crossed paths with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was en route to Israel to continue the diplomatic efforts. Addressing the UN Security Council, Ramiz Albarouk, the UN's Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East peace process, described the situation as fragile but hopeful. He said the agreement represents hope for a better future, but the dynamics are extremely fragile. The fragile ceasefire signed between 2 weeks ago is the pressure of several European, Arab and Muslim leaders have largely held, though it was briefly breached when rough Hamas units fired at Israeli soldiers, prompting a retaliatory missile strike. Trump dismissed the incident as a work of rogue elements or not Hamas leadership, insisting that the core agreement remains intact. The US administration has also defended Hamas' partial failure to return all the bodies of Israeli hostages as required under the deal, noting that many remain buried under the rubble from prior Israeli airstrikes. At the Security Council, US Permanent Representative Mike Waltz said the road ahead would be difficult. This historic success is cause for celebration, but also for determination. It cannot be for cause for complacency. As President Trump has said, the job is not done, Waltz stated. Vice President Vance echoed the sentiment, underlining the next major challenge, disarming Hamas. We have a very tough task ahead of us, which is to disarm Hamas, he said, stressing that demilitarization is essential to ensure the long-term success of the peace accord. The Gaza peace deal was reached hastily to stop months of conflict, but key components remain incomplete. Chief among them is the creation of an international stabilization force tasked with demilitarization Gaza and maintaining order. For now, Hamas remains armed and continues to exert harsh control over civilians, threatening the stability of the agreement. Vance ruled out the deployment of US combat troops in Gaza, but confirmed that around 200 army American personnel, are currently stationed in Israel to supervise and mediate the peace process. Indonesia has offered to contribute 20,000 soldiers to the International Stabilization Force, while several other nations have expressed conditional support for participation. Although both Washington and Tel Aviv are reluctant to place the mission under direct UN command, diplomatic discussions are underway to secure a UN-backed mandate similar to the model used in Houthis' multinational security support mission led by Kenya, which later evolved in the gang suppression force. Such a mandate would end international legitimacy while keeping operational control in the hands of coalition partners. Secretary of State Marco Rubio signaled openness to this approach, saying that administration was considering going to the UN potentially and getting the international mandate, building the international defense security forces. Beyond the security aspects, the US is also pushing for rapid reconstruction in Gaza. With an estimated 80% of homes destroyed during the conflict, rebuilding efforts are expected to begin soon in the areas that have been stabilized. Vice President Vance said that first phase would focus on Rafah, one of Gaza's southwestern cities. The hope is to rebuild Rafah over the next 2 to 3 years, where theoretically 500,000 people could live, he said. The ambitious reconstruction plan aims not only to restore housing aid, infrastructure, but also to symbolize the beginning of a new chapter of peace and stability for Gaza's war-weary population. While optimism remains cautious, Trump's rapid and high-profile deployment of his top diplomatic figures, Kushner, Witkoff, Rubio and Vance, underscores the administration's determination to protect the fragile deal that has so far brought an unprecedented pause to years of hostilities. That's all for now in this update. Stay tuned to the Savera, download the app and follow us on various social media platforms.